Ooh, Lord have mercy. All right. What's popping? This is the only quiet part of the house I could get access to because quarantine and everybody is. What's up, y'all? Oh, Lord have mercy. All right. I know, belly, just big. That's gonna have to help me up from down here. All right. We're gonna get into something really quick. It ain't gonna be long because I gotta eat. But I hope all y'all doing good. Grab a piece of paper and a pen real quick. This light is everything. Okay, now. I want to just give you something because I think you need it. Hell, I needed it. I be doing this. I be like, oh, man. I just want to tell everybody. So I was like, man, you be talking. People may not want to listen. So I did a poll and 97% or something like that, or 93% people said, yeah, I would listen. So hell, here we are. So get a piece of paper, get a pencil. I promise you it's not going to be super, like it's just run with me. Okay. Hope everybody's cool. Let me type this: emotionally healthy, SPIRI, spirituality. What's up, y'all? Here we go. Boop. All right. So first, let me just start off by asking. I don't know if anybody gonna answer, but feel free because I care. How you doing? With everything going on, I need to change the filter in this air conditioner. I'm doing good. Right now, I hit 6 months being pregnant on Tuesday this week. Man, I didn't even imagine making it this far. My history, the things I've dealt with. And it's funny because every time I found out early on, like when I was like 8 weeks or something like that. And I remember I was like, if I could just make it to 10 weeks, and then I would make it to 10 and be like, man, if I could just make it to like 15 weeks. And then I remember recently I was like, well, if I can make it to 23 weeks, my baby can live outside my womb. Because all I was thinking was miscarriage. And I know that sounds sad, but thank y'all. So when I made it to 6 months on Tuesday, I was like, oh, wow, try not to be negative. But I want y'all to know in times like this, like, that's just my version of, fear and lack of faith and brokenness is, my baby gonna make it. Thank y'all. So 6 months is a blessing. And that's why I said this baby finna have a story behind it because, like, I didn't think I would make it to 6 months. So my due date is September 29th. But until then, we're trying to figure out baby shower and all that. But today we're talking about emotionally healthy spirituality. And basically put, like, I know a lot of us right now are in a space of our own belief concerning, like, our theology, your personal relationship with God, the universe, Allah, whatever your belief is. And the book that I've read so many times, my best friend, connects, the idea of your theology to your emotional maturity, right? I know a lot of y'all are in relationships, marriages, friendships. A lot of you are parents. And I don't think we were ever really properly taught how to see our spirituality through the eyes of our emotions. I know as somebody who's a huge empath, like, I just feel like I just was born feeling. Thank you, Kev. I just always felt like my feelings were a burden because I feel so heavy and so deeply. Now, part of that makes me a great wife, a mother, and friend. But the other part of that makes me have this tumultuous relationship with God and sometimes other people who maybe do me wrong or things that I see. This is a perfect example of what I'm dealing with as I see what's going on right now, right? Somebody might look at a police brutality video and, like, shed a tear and cry and be like, damn, that's crazy. That makes me mad. Like, I feel it on a level of that's me. And it's like I mourn and it's just like there's some stuff like I had to ask some people that was DMing me videos, hey man, ease up, because I can't take all that in. So with you, as we sit here and I'm getting ready to ask you some challenging questions that I hope don't offend you, but I hope it does make you go, how is your emotional being, and how does it affect other areas of your life? Most of us, so there's a book, and I'm not going to read the chapter. What I am going to do, though, I just want to read some quotes. And one of the places I kind of want to start with is this sentence here that says, growing up emotionally underdeveloped. Very few people emerge out of their families of origin emotionally whole or mature. If I don't say nothing else, okay, if I don't say anything else, that's a whole message right there. Many of us are carrying the weight, the brokenness, the damaged, dysfunctional existence of our parents' trauma. We're carrying it as if it's our own. I mean, we're carrying great grandparents' trauma, in dysfunctional ways, not even being able to identify this is not normal. And so imagine having all that on you, and then you enter in a relationship, or you have a child, or you start a business. Like, that is very impactful to the like people and the atmosphere around you, right? The environment around you. So let's just lay that out. As we move forward with this little lesson today, just understand there are very few people who just come out very healed and whole. Yes, thank you. See, October know what I'm talking about, because even with, and it's amazing too, because October is one of my daughter's best friend's parent, and we first met and super vibe. But to hear her story, I'm like, how did you come out like this? Like, super just amazing. And she's like, girl, I'm crazy too. Like, it's one of them things that you have to sit with before you move on in your journey. It's like, I do recognize that there were some dysfunctional things that I survived and that I clung on to that are still kind of with me. And so I'm able to hear or learn or be encouraged or taught, because I'm already okay with to say that this thing, it's like, if this thing right here was on me, I can be able to say, if Paris said, Kat, you got something on your shoulder and I don't think it's allowing you to be balanced, I can say, you know what? Wow, I never thought about that. Thank you for giving me permission to look at it like that. Instead of saying, this is my shoulder and this is what I look like and this is who I am. I think a lot of us have never been in a position to say, this is not who I am. This is something that's a part of me, but it's not who I am. It's not my identity. So anyway, so many of us have, escaped unscathed. Hey, how you doing? Concerning our spirituality, I'm gonna just show you the diagram. That is a picture of an iceberg, and basically the chapter just goes into the iceberg syndrome, which is there are parts of our life that have been touched by God, and there's a whole bunch that hasn't. And I am a believer in that, because the last 2 years have definitely taught me there were some parts of me that surprised me. I just was mature enough and tired enough to let it come out, that I didn't allow God to touch. Let me say this, because when you hear that, if you feel a little bit defensive, let me help you. Some of us don't even know we're doing it, because we don't even think it's something that God needs to be concerned with. I remember when I was younger, there were things I wouldn't pray about because I thought I was bothering God. It wasn't until I was older and I was in the ministry and doing work that somebody was like, I saw a movie. And the lady in the movie was like, do you pray, blah, blah, blah. The person was like, nah, I ain't finna bother God with that. I was like, yeah, I'm agreeing with her. Like, I don't want to bother God with that. And the person was like, what if God encounters you during prayer and purposely blocks out how your day went because he just wants to sit and hear from you? And I was like, that's too deep, that's just too, I wasn't trying to go there. And so it always made me say, maybe God do want to hear from me, like good or bad, how my day is going. So I say all that to say is there are parts of us that are untouched by God, not because we're like super rebellious and sinful and just unbelievers, but just because we may have been taught like, you're bothering God. Especially if you're from a black household. Child, don't you run up on no adult while they're on the phone or doing something with no stupid question that they think is stupid. Because why? You're going to be told, you wait till I got on the phone, or you bothering me about this, or blah, 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 blah. And so as black children, sometimes we are made to feel like what we have to say or do is unimportant. And I remember listening to T.D. Jakes talk about how his mother would stop everything when he had anything to say and listen to him. And looking at what the caliber of man he is, I was like, wow, like that was profound to me. I don't know who I'm raising. So I try my best to remember to stop listening to my kids. But I said it to you to say there are parts of you that are untouched by God. Yes. We see our children and not heard. As an adult, now how did that manifest in our life? Well, there's some things I don't pray about. Boom. Part of me that's untouched by God. There are some people who I would not advocate to because I didn't want to be, I don't want to bother them. They got stuff they doing. Now what am I teaching myself about what I need, my needs and wants? Brought it into a marriage, so all this stuff had to be broken down. So write that down and you can ask yourself that. What parts of me are untouched by God? What parts of me do I feel like are off limits or is not significant enough to be infiltrated by blessing and change? You know, some of you who dealt with brokenness or trauma, you may think you don't deserve love. You don't deserve somebody that is a partner for you, or you may not think that it exists. So you've already written that off like, I ain't finna bother God with that. So, I'm going to just show you this pie. See that little pie? 5 parts that create us: emotional, social, intellectual, spiritual, and physical, right? And emotional is usually the one that is like last on the list for most of us, because we're always taught like if you're too emotional, you're weak, right? We especially teach that to our boys, our young men, black, white, Latino, especially people of color. We're more similar than we like to admit. But we will teach that to them, like your emotions need to be suppressed in a certain way, when really we should be teaching you to manage them. Just like for me, I'm very strong. I think I would have been an amazing man if I was born a man. But at the same time, learning how to manage your emotions is very powerful. And I need a little bit more training in that than others, right? So I'm about to read to you top 10 symptoms indicating if someone is suffering from a bad case of emotional unhealthy spirituality. Now, I'm going to read this to you. Like I said, do not get offended. I want you to be open to say, all right, God, what you trying to tell me? If there's something that sticks out to you, I want you can write the number down and I can repeat it if you want me to, but because it's a lot to write down, but I'm going to give it to you. There are 2 I'm going to focus on today, and then we're going to be gone. So number 1, using God to run from God. Using God to run from God. This one is really a good one for people who are, or were, because we're all been on lockdown, into the church and ministry, and you're the head of this and you doing that, and call me, I'll do it, using God to run from God. That's great. You know what I'm saying? You do your quiet time early in the morning and you always bragging about it, but you ain't thought about God all day. Boop. But anyway, number 2, ignoring the emotions of anger, sadness, and fear. And I'm gonna throw in there depression. Ignoring them. Just saying like it's a sinful thing to feel or experience, so I don't even acknowledge it when it comes over me. Okay. Number 3, dying to the wrong things. Dying to the wrong things. Remember, these are the top 10 symptoms indicating if you are suffering from a bad case of emotionally unhealthy spirituality. Number 4, denying the past's impact on the present. Denying your past's impact on your present. Number 5, dividing our lives into secular and sacred compartments. And this one is good because I know as a woman, I'm always talking about how men can compartmentalize better than women. But as a woman, I definitely have done this and do this. So separating your lives. This is holy. This is secular. Number 6, doing for God instead of being with God. Learned that lesson a few years ago. We won't get into that. Number 7, spiritualizing away conflict. Oof. And let me just say this book is good because clearly it's for a book of believers, but it's good because it challenges a lot of people who are Christians and their belief system, their theology. I wish I could sit in front of a bunch of people who are conflicted right now about their racist beliefs that are saying, look, I always believe this and I want to hold on to these racist beliefs. But I know something in me is telling me I got to change, but I wish I could talk to them because, and black people who are for the cause and for this and for that, but then you are so rude and disloyal and unloving to your black children in the home that you won't put them first when it comes to certain decisions. That you or black men who are being disrespectful, derogatory, and just awful to black women in relationships, in their life, in their family. Like, all of us have this part of us. So anyway, spiritualizing away conflict. The other one, covering over brokenness, weakness, and failure. That's a big one too. We're in this culture maybe I do number 7. We're in this culture right now where people are pushing for, like, when this lockdown is over, you should know a new language. You should have started a new business. You should have filed your LLC. Maybe I just didn't do nothing. And I dealt with my depression finally. That's work. we're in this space where if you're not going hard, rise and grind, I saw this one black lady, Lord, they ripped her behind up. She basically went on and said, because the blackout and the confusion with the blackout, she lost out on $100,000 in sales. She was like, I got to stay up late and go hard to get that money back. She was pissed, and she lost hella more money because of the attitude. Going. That's a whole setup. So we won't get into that, but covering over brokenness, weakness, and failure. Living without limits. And number 10, judging other people's spiritual journey. Oh, that's a good one, isn't it? So quick to judge somebody else's walk with God, what it should or shouldn't look like, what you should or shouldn't be doing, because it's so easy to pinpoint somebody else and what they're doing wrong. Because if you stop for a second and use that same scope to look at your life, you will pass out because you're a mess, child, okay? So those are the 10 things that will let you know that your spirituality is unhealthy through the lenses of your emotions. I want to talk about spiritualizing away conflict, but I'll focus on 4 and 5. So really quick, 4, denying the past's impact on the present. I think right now what's happening in a lot of our homes with people being on lockdown is that you're being forced to deal with a lot of this stuff. Now, if you are somebody who's really, really good at it, you've been able to really get through these last 6 to 8 weeks and not even deal with your past, your brokenness, your belief systems. Right now, my fear is that George Floyd's death and the outrage that has sparked has kind of come in as a distraction for some people who need to be looking at the real reason you're mad. It's kind of like if you're mad at your teacher because your teacher embarrassed you, but you go out and you bully some kids on the playground. The anger is very real, it's still there, it's misdirected. So I ain't gonna lie, I don't feel like going to get my hours in California, but I really need to become a therapist or at least a psychologist, because I'm like, this is my fear for a lot of people right now. It's like we can do both. We can be outraged and support and push for legislation change and support, people who have been brutalized for the police, and we can also sit down and talk about our personal anger and trauma that that's manifesting right now in the streets, in our jobs, in our homes, in the shower when we cry. Okay. I believe we can do both. So we do, but we need to understand this does not mean that what our past lives were won't continue to influence us in different ways. The person is just talking about this particular person. He's a pastor, and he's just talking about how his past influences like what's going on currently. And one of the ways you can be aware, I hate this word, but of your past affecting your present are being aware of your triggers. Okay? I taught this a couple weeks ago when I went live. I'm going to give it to you again. When you're out or you're experiencing something and you feel this emotion come up from an incident, from a phrase, from a song, from a movie, it's something you have to be actively working on all the time. That is a clear indicator that this emotion is not really about what you just saw or experienced. It's tied to something in your past. For years, and even now, I don't like watching rape scenes in movies. Some sex scenes are just questionable because now all of a sudden there's a lot of different kinky things that people think are just, cool for them. That's not cool for me. So it triggers me. But I didn't really take the time to admit to myself, like, I don't like watching stuff like that because of what happened to me in my past. It was like, don't take all that. You ain't got to do all that, right? Or if I'm out and I hear a mother berating a child, it's triggering for me, like almost to the point where I can't, my eyes start twitching. Why? Because it relates back to how my mom used to speak to me and what it did to me and the narrative it created in my mind. So the first thing as an empath, I think of that child gonna have a complex about that. And I want to say something and speak to it, but we out in public. So your past shows up in your present and it manifests through triggers. If you can understand the triggers and be very clear of them. And listen, I'm talking about being so diligent, you got a pen and paper, baby, in public, a little notebook. Something that made me mad. I got mad when the lady seemed like she was about to take my parking spot. It just pissed me off. It made me go off. Okay. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you write them down, and then when you get home at night, when you do your wind down, maybe you need a wind down routine. You go over your list of triggers, things that bothered me today. Why did this bother me today? Right? Why did this bother me today? We don't do that enough because we're always going, which goes back to my point. Don't get too caught up in everything that's happening in our society and put that first and not your own needs first. Let me just give y'all some ease. What you don't do, somebody else can pick up and do. George Floyd's family has about 9 million right now that has been donated from different platforms for the daughter, for the burial. I mean, all type of stuff. Sean King, I don't really follow him, but I do look at his page for information, and other activists are out doing the damn thing. We're still seeking justice for Breonna Taylor. But I'm telling you all this stuff to let you know, if you take the time out for yourself, that's okay. The show still goes on, and you can hop back in when you're done dealing with self. So manage the triggers. Be aware of things that trigger you that can help identify why things from your past are actually showing up in your present. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. If you have any questions, y'all just type them in there. The work of breaking stuff that happened in your past that's going on right now, it demands we go back in order to break free from unhealthy and destructive patterns that prevent us from loving ourselves and others as God designed. I don't want to focus too much on racism and racist people because that's not I can't really help with that. Most of my viewers, let me say this, most of my viewers are black, but I got a nice little chunk of people who not black who really vibe with me, right? One of the things I think we all can kind of talk about is heartbreak, right? We all had some type of lover or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever relationship that didn't go right. The mature thing to do was sit and figure out what your part was in that. What part did I play in it going crazy? Now, don't get me wrong. Maybe you were just in a really crazy relationship, like domestic violence, where you didn't do anything wrong, but you still had some choices you could have made better, which was noticing the warning signs and getting out sooner or whatever. But the patterns that we participate in create a story we tell about ourselves. And that goes back to, Lord, my feet, the legs, I fell asleep. That goes back to this thing I put on my shoulder. If somebody points it out and says, hey, I think this has you walking like this and you're unbalanced. When you are aware of your patterns, you're able to say, okay, I'm still a little messed up, but I can admit this is not who I am. It's just a part of me, and you can take it off. The problem is because we're not aware of the patterns. When people point it out, or a person, because oftentimes people will be too scared to tell you about yourself. When you finally come into contact with somebody who's willing to speak up, it's very hard for you to digest, or us to digest. Why? Because we haven't taken the time ourselves to identify those patterns and to say, well, damn, this ain't healthy. And this is something I've been doing a long time. Girls who are always, that say stuff like, hear me out, who say stuff like, I don't have many girlfriends. I hang out with mostly dudes because girls start too much mess. I've found that are some of the messiest people. Some of the messiest people that I've ever encountered. And so, and I've said that. Let me just say that. As an ex-tomboy, I have said that. I genuinely went to the park with my homeboys, played basketball, wore boxers, like that was me. But I also noticed that I was chatty. That I was very chatty. And so, because I was able to articulate myself and stand up for myself, I oftentimes as a young kid and very bossy thought I was right. So yeah, I talked about you, and I tell you in your face, you're trifling. And that's why, but I say that to say there's these stories we kind of create about ourselves, and when they're challenged, we're like appalled and we're shocked. So if you're the first identifier of your bad habits that have become a story about what you tell about yourself, when it's brought up and confirmed, it's not so offensive. And let me just tell y'all, if you're ever praying like, God, change my heart, Lord, make me more like Jesus, I want you to know He trying. It's quite possible you're not ready to hear what He's sending you, because He ain't gonna give you chapters 2 through 7 if you don't even want to read the introduction. You feel me? So that's number 4. Number 4, we're going over denying the past impact on the present. The remedy I just gave, if you're just joining in, please write down your triggers. Write down what bothers you, what irritates you. Fear is a good one. What scares you? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know for me, I don't like my kids playing at a park. Never liked it. I always had Lance kind of go and supervise the children. Why? Where'd that come from? When I was little, I had a bad accident and knocked out teeth at a park, like 7 of them. And so every time my kids do something, I'm like, oh Lord, they about to, like, I'm gone, because in my mind, they about to knock their teeth out. There's a little boy who fell down the stairs, like not hard, but like his bike slipped down the stairs in our apartment. It wasn't even my son, and all you hear me go is, "You all right?" Lance was like, "That's not Junior." I was like, "I know," but in my mind, his teeth got knocked out. Like, that's just a pretty example, or a nice example for you to kind of chew on. Notice your triggers so you can identify what from your past is really affecting your present. Number 5, dividing our lives into secular and sacred compartments. Human beings have an uncanny ability to live compartmentalized double lives. Oh, yes. Here's some examples. See if you identify yourself in any of these. Frank attends church and sings about God's love. On the way home, he pronounces the death penalty over another driver. For Frank, Sunday church is for God. Monday to Saturday is for work. Jane yells at her husband, berating him for his lack of spiritual leadership with the children. He walks away deflated and crushed. She walks away convinced she has fought valiantly in the name of God. Ken has a disciplined devotional time with God each day before going to work. But then he does not think of God's presence with him all through the day at work or when he returns home to be with his wife and children. Judith cries during songs about love and grace of God at her church. But she regularly complains and blames others for the difficulties and trials in her life. I could read these and write these just because I'm a nut. Ain't that something? Now, of course, these are fictional people with fictional examples, but insert yourself. Insert yourself. Let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum. What's the most holiest thing that you feel like you do and you are, right? But what's the most craziest thing that is super secular that you participate in? I'll go first, right? I'll go first. So Catherine uses her discerning, prophetic, zealous voice of God to infiltrate and speak life into the lives of others, right? For the sake of Jesus Christ's kingdom and God's glory, while cussing up a storm in every area of her life. Now, I say that not amusingly. I say that to kind of give you the gist of how clear I am on my mess, right? I know my triggers, because this in the car, you don't want to hear it. Lance keeps saying, I'm going to record you one day in the car. I go off in the car. I mean, one day I was getting ready to make a left-hand turn in a parking lot, and this little race car just kind of went almost in front of me. And I was just like, now look at you. What you? I'm talking to him. Just, I was like, I'm giving you an example of the dichotomy of how we compartmentalize our spiritual life and the rest of our life, secular stuff, right? And that is important right now, because a lot of things in our life have been paused. A lot of the distractions have been paused. And I believe, honestly, it's for the benefit of us to be able to know ourselves and to understand why things are going the way that they are. I think one thing that God has had to continue to remind me is my blow up, because that's how I think of it, hasn't not come because of who I am. It's not in his timing right now. But it's easier for me to digest, okay, maybe my behavior is just off. I got to stop. I got to get my mouth together. I got to stop cussing. I can't be out here speaking God's word and doing this and then I cuss, like this bad. But then what does that feed into? That feeds into I can work myself into God's good grace. Totally taking out the whole idea that Jesus Christ's blood is why I'm qualified. Not the fact that I don't cuss and I can encourage and preach the word of God. He has to dismantle that. So he can't even let that be something that I'm doing it for. It has to be a true transformation, which goes into okay, learning my triggers, understanding why I do it, being able to have self-control. Galatians 5:19, that's a fruit of the spirit, right? We won't get into that. But I implore you to ask yourself, as we talk about number 5, which is, let me read it again, which is dividing our lives into secular and sacred compartments. Like, what's your secular compartment? What's your sacred? What's your spiritual compartment? What's the thing that you do that you just like? Maybe you sing. Maybe, I know some people who genuinely is just like super deep into worship, could just like go in, like, what's theirs? How do you treat others? Some of us, you guys got a total lack of faith. Like, you got the books, you got the posters, you listen to it in your car, you do all this other stuff, but deep down you have a fear your life is going to be nothing more than what it is. You too scared to say it. But God see it in your heart. That's your truth. That's your reality. And until you're ready to move past it by acknowledging it, then he going to leave it right there, because he's not going to jump on you and rip it out of you. That's what I kept hoping he would do with my brokenness. I was like, you got to fix me. You got to jump on me and rip this brokenness out of me, because right now I don't want to do nothing. And he didn't. That's not the remedy. So if you're watching this, I encourage you, it helps you give grace to others when you know your own mess. That's the first thing. But there is a joy and a peace I really believe that some of us are supposed to be experiencing in this time, and you're going to miss it if you don't pump your brakes and re-examine you, or the story of you that you've been holding on to your whole life. If you have any questions, definitely ask me. Like I said, this is on Amazon. You can definitely get the book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. If you watching this, I just want you to understand and know it's a reason why you 7, okay, child, are watching this. There's a reason why God put it back on my heart to do it. I'm very apprehensive here lately, because I don't want to be wasting my time, in the sense that, like, I don't know, people not vibing with me. But I think that's also the enemy just getting me to try to be quiet. Like, you don't need to go live, shh. But I encourage you, even if you're watching this, that means you got a few minutes. After we get off of here, just sit and just ask yourself, like, all right, and if anybody wants to either come on with me real quick, or if you want to put it in a comment, I can kind of help you identify it. But at least one thing that for a fact that God wants to, what's up, Brittany? God wants to, or maybe you want God to rectify or like help you start to understand in your life. I just, my heart goes out to anybody sitting here just feeling like, we don't see you, God don't see you, it don't matter, it's always going to be like this. Things never going to change. Like, I got this baby coming, and I got like all this baby stuff like people have given me, that I'm like, I just want a house, and my husband and I express one another, like, it feels like sometimes we'll never have a home. Like, we'll never have a house. Like, we don't see it for ourselves. But I also have to be very aware that is my fear, and that is something that I am struggling to hold on to faith with. So I encourage you to be that clear on your mess too. Because when he tries to come and speak to you about it, or confirm something in your heart that's a blessing, you can then be like, oh, that's why. Like, I was just walking in the mall, and somebody gonna hand me this pamphlet about buying a new house. Ain't nothing but the devil. Like, no, that was God trying to encourage you, like, my prayer, my purpose, I feel pulled in many directions, but can't seem to focus on what should be in the forefront. Oh man, I've been there. If you know me, and you do, I done made soap, I done baked bread, I done did hair, I done did a subscription box line, a YouTube podcast, I done did it all. Here's my advice for somebody who feels like you're pulled in all different directions. You got to get very, very quiet and stop doing everything. Stop doing everything. Now, this advice isn't for everybody. This is for somebody who feels like I'm being pulled in too many directions. The problem with doing stuff while you feel that way is you never are sensitive enough to the voice of God to know this is it. This is that. The other thing about being pulled in many directions is that not that you're being pulled in directions, you're being propelled or pushed by the idea of the successful dream that you see of making it once you find the right path. That's scary, because what happens is Now it's about the finish line. And you've elevated the finish line over everything, everybody else, sometimes even God, sometimes even yourself. And now you don't know what's the right direction. You're just more obsessed with the idea of being successful in it. And let me tell you, that was me saying like, Lord, I'm trying to do, faith without work is dead. I want to do my purpose, blah, 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 blah. But that had become more elevated than the journey, the purpose, and my relationship with him. So I encourage you, if you can do it without it like hitting your pockets, like, oh, I got to make money because it's my job. Take a break from some things. Say, Lord, I dedicate the next 3 days to prayer, fasting, and maybe not even like avid prayer, like, God, I'm coming to you right now. Maybe it's just like, I don't turn on the TV. I don't do nothing. I'm waiting for your presence. And on the third day, if I haven't heard from you, just give me insight on whether I need to keep going or not. So I just encourage you to get very, very quiet, because the enemy loves a noisy Christian trying to get clarity from God. He ain't even got to do nothing. He ain't got to do a thing, child, okay? That's like a crock pot. Set it and forget it, okay? So I hope that helped you. Get quiet. And not quiet like worship music in the living room. Like that. Let me just say this and I'll move on to the next person. Sometimes we trick ourselves into thinking that's like being a good Christian. Like, I'm seeking your face. But you're using God to run away from God. He wants to give you the answer. There's like not an amount of worship you have to do to get God to reply to you or respond to you. That's the enemy too. Sometimes he wants you to just be. Because the answer may not even be him telling you which direction to go in. Sometimes the answer is him telling you who you are or showing you something about yourself. And then you get the answer from that. Child, you would be surprised. Okay, trigger. When people make me feel like I don't have a relationship with God because I don't go to church. That's a good one. So, that's a good one because there's a little bit of projection in there. And let me explain what I mean. So you know what the overhead projector is. Something that's over here projecting the image onto a screen that's over there, right? So oftentimes, you're welcome, Mo. Oftentimes that stems from unresolved understanding about why you don't go to church. And first, let me say this. Oftentimes, when that's the scenario, there is somebody in your mind you're trying not to be like. Whether it's somebody in your family, maybe somebody you talked about, maybe it's somebody else in the church that other people have talked about. But there's this image of a person or a group of people who are ostracized or talked about. And you're like, that's not why I did it. I ain't them. Right? And I'm speaking from experience, girl. Okay. So that's kind of in there where it's like, don't try to make me feel like I am not a true believer because I don't go to the church because I'm not like them over there or this person over there. So some of that is connected to that. So I would encourage you to identify who that is. What group is that? Is there a memory attached to that? Like, yeah, when I was 13, my mom was talking about this lady, blah, blah, blah. Identify that. The other thing is, ask yourself this hard question. Do I feel like my relationship with God is lacking, less than, minuscule, trash compared to somebody else who is actively going to church with a church home and serving in ministry? See, these are and I thank you for being honest about this. This is the question you have to ask yourself, so that when you're approached with it, you can identify and just speak from a place of truthfulness, humility, and just vulnerability, because you already asked yourself the hard question. So the question I would ask you is, well, how is your relationship? And I don't mean how's your relationship like, well, yeah, I pray, blah, blah, blah. No. There is something triggering you when this question is brought up, which leads me to believe some of the stuff that they are saying resonates with you and you don't understand why. Because you feel like, well, Kat, I may have left the church. That doesn't mean I left my relationship with God. I believe you, girl. None of us is in church right now, okay? That's the truth for many of us. But one thing I can tell you is when I was over or close to 300 pounds and people would talk about fat, this, fat, that, it would hurt me differently. Fat people are lazy. Fat people have no self-control. And it wasn't that I wasn't trying to be healthy or lose the weight or I already knew I was fat. It was that a part of what they were saying resonated with me on a level that I didn't want it to resonate with me. because I remember I was walking 3 miles a day. I was trying to do so much, and I just couldn't shake the weight, for years. So when people would say it, they would verbalize an internal reality. It was easier for me to judge them than to sit and say, well, why do you feel like this about yourself, Kat? Why do you feel like this about yourself? You could call me ugly and I would laugh. Call me fat and it did something to me. I never was the big girl who could say I'm big and beautiful. I'm a big sexy. I would laugh and tease saying like big sexy, but I didn't really believe that for real. Being the only black person in a white Christian private school, and yes, I do believe I feel the shame after I calm down from being in defense. Yes, hey, first of all, we're doing good work here. I love growth. Let me commend you for saying yeah. And let me tell you, it is in that shame that the enemy is working. See, if we don't never admit what they said to us, it's like the N word. Like a lot of people are like, why can't I say it? You guys say it. When somebody else says it, there is a belief about being a black person that is realized in there, that somewhere in here we learned that we're still struggling with ourselves. Right? I remember I was more educated than this woman who was my boss, and they would not promote me over her. And she was barely had a high school education, just a nasty person, just didn't know more than me, and they would not promote me. So when racial tension stuff happened and stuff was said, it made me feel like, well, maybe I am that, because my merit alone didn't make me better than her. And that's what I'm saying, where your freedom and where your truthfulness lies, when you can say, you know what, I don't even agree with what you said, so why is what you saying hurting me right now? It's because there's somewhere in there, and thank you for using that word. It's such a powerful word, shame. So let's go even further back. You say you went to a Christian school. You're the only black girl. Well, baby, the shame ain't because you left the church. It goes back to number 4, how your past is affecting your present. There were some incidents that happened that started to teach you about the story you would tell yourself until today, because we're challenging it, about who you are as a black woman, especially if you work in an environment that mimics the environment of the trauma. I need to be a psychologist, baby. Oftentimes we're comfortable in those environments because we know how to survive it. Most of us are in survival mode. So we're going to environment to environment, surviving trauma, calling it, girl power, and you're carrying this shame. And the only thing that God will leave there, which is the thorn in your side right now, is the shame you feel when somebody challenges how good of a Christian you are. Look at me trying to put my arm on something high as hell. So he leaves it there. Because if he takes the shame from you and just makes you feel like, hey, I am good to go, blah, 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 you never go back to let him, which goes back to what we talked about, which is the damn iceberg. Where the iceberg at? Come on, slide. Parts of our life that are untouched. Because you never heard maybe or took the time to give yourself permission to say, you know what? Somehow the things I experienced of being a black girl in an all-white school, a Christian school, come on, multi-layered trauma, a Christian school at that, you've never reconciled how God could let it happen and why it happened and why you never were maybe vindicated from it, you know what I'm saying? With those people who hurt you. Like, it's just kind of like, that's just what it was, and now we move on. Well, nah. Somewhere in there, and I actually rolled my eyes when I heard you say iceberg, because I felt all of that. Come on, and that's good. And you know what that is? I wish I had I don't use dirty socks. This is the tension. This is the tension that made you roll your eyes, but your heart go, eh. It's the tension of our spirit and our flesh that are forever intertwined, and we're constantly pulling on trying to see who's going to win. So I just want you to know, everything you're feeling is overwhelming and is very normal right now. Because there's a lot of us who are trying to understand how stuff happened, but you God. But you God, though. You're God of the universe. You're making everything happen. Like, it's very hard to understand it. But let me just say this. It starts with talks like this today. So maybe this is for you. Praise God. Woo woo. M.O. And anybody else watching that, it resonates with you. So he can say, hey, I can't touch that. It's like a therapist. When people come do coaching with me, let me tell you, I've been trained as a therapist. Let me say that. My license is not in this state. And so When I sit with a coach, I'm with a client, I'm really like, I can't bring up nothing. I need you to say it first. And I've had people that come to session after session after session, and then finally I'll say, "Look, I don't even want you to waste your money. I'm gonna go and tell you, okay? But I need you to say it first." God is the same way with stuff. There are some things that He's like, "I can't touch it till you ready," because if I touch it, it violates the principle of your will that you have, free will. So He don't touch it till you want to touch it. That's why the country is toe up like this. Because we sat here and proclaimed, oh, when I say we, I mean Americans. And when I say Americans, I mean the white people who established the country, like, roll with me. One nation under God. Okay, free will. But then you sat back and did something completely different. I'm going to save it and I'm going to put it on my YouTube and my Instagram. And so God sat back for centuries watching this country develop under cognitive dissonance. And so now you got these same people stupefied by what's going on. And the beautiful part of it is there are some people whose scales have fallen from their eyes and they're able to see like, oh snap, y'all, we did this to ourselves. In the same token, you got a whole race of people, black people, who are experiencing the same cognitive dissonance because the same oppression and abuse that we have endured for years, we have now become the abusers in our own communities when it comes to one another. So everybody got something they got to get together. You feel what I'm saying? What if we want Him to touch, but really can't express what it is that can't express what it is that we're feeling? So let me give you an example of that. It starts with just acknowledging, like, I need you. When I lost the second baby, I was too done with God. Like, and when I say too done, I just mean like I could not fit what I knew about Him into the context of what was happening in my life. I couldn't. How could you be the God of all this and let this happen? Even after I asked you to intervene, right? The problem with my theology was I wanted a very quick, to the point, like, let's get this fixed. God, touch me, heal me, because I don't want to feel this way no more. But without understanding what was underneath the brokenness and the pain, I would have never been able to be prepared for the next thing. So basically, let's just use an example. Let's just say you're dealing with a pain, and you're like, I need God to come in and heal this right now. I need you to come fix it. But God is not a fixer or Santa Claus. He is a God that is I love this, a barrage of complexities simplified so we can understand Him. What do I mean? We don't get to say, I need a tree, and boop, a tree appeared because we spoke it. We can say I want a tree, but guess what we got to do? We got to go get the sapling or go get the seed, the water, the sun. There's a whole process behind it. Because what we're asking for, we've made it so simple in our mind just to happen. And God's like, ain't nothing that easy coming like that. You can ask for it and I can say yes, but there's still a process. So when you're asking God to fix certain broken parts of you, some of us don't even realize He already started with it. And you know where a lot of it started at? It wasn't after the pain and the brokenness. It was before. It was the thorn, the pain, the ouch, the cut that He let stay there day after day, year after year. For some people, decade after decade, He let sit there. The change started there because He had to let you know, hey, there's something there. The other thing is, once you begin to explore and peel back the layers, you'll wake up and be like, Lord, I can't believe I woke up. God, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'm mad at you. And then a year later, I never could really trust you with my true dreams because I didn't think that I was a good enough Christian for you to bless me with it. That's a completely different understanding of what I thought when I was in my temper tantrum stage. And let me tell you something. I say that as somebody who lost a baby. I don't mean temper tantrum like a little spoiled little kid. I mean temper tantrum because I was so filled with immature emotions that I couldn't see past the rage and the anger. So God had to stand back and give me my space and time to get that out of my system. It's just like a relationship. What they say, when a woman's fed up, ain't nothing you can do about it. When you sick and tired of being sick and tired, you see where this is going? It's the same thing with God. He's a gentleman. So He's going to be like, oh, you in the stage of you upset. He'll be there with you in it. Now, I will say, I'm still in the place where I'm trying to understand, like, you was there with me in it. The footsteps for Him. I felt so alone. But when I look back and realize I didn't lose my mind, I didn't kill myself, I didn't hurt my kids, I didn't snap, like, okay, maybe He did have His hand on me. So I encourage you, Mercedes, to be patient in your process. Be very clear on the fact that he's showing you at his pace in the steps. So don't be so quick to say like, heal me from this, heal me from this. He's like, yeah, but it's something else. Sometimes what we ask him to heal us from ain't even what's broken. I'll snap because I can't hear your snaps right now. We'll pray, oh Lord, send me prosperity. Lord, if I just had this. And God is like, you still sad that your daddy left you. You want the big house and the car and the career to prove to all the people who did you wrong that you are worthy. And God is like, I can't give that to you because why? I'm a God of completion, 100%. All the way around, 360 degrees. When I heal you, baby, you healed. When I heal you and somebody says, you're not a good Christian because you don't go to church, you're able to say, oh man, thank God for the blood of Christ because I am nothing. I am trash. I'm a wreck. But because of the blood, I am qualified and called. And every day that I feel like I get it wrong, I'm still a winner and I'm right because of Christ Jesus. Woo! That's powerful. And it's not because of what I said. It's just because I believe it. So now you can't call me nothing. I call me nothing. I'm glad we're on the same page. You damn right. That's why my cussing is something I want to work on, but it will never keep me being quiet. It will never keep me from saying like, oh, I can't go live because I'm still working on my home life. It'll never keep me from being quiet because that's his ploy, his tactics. I have people who say certain things to me about what I should and shouldn't be doing. Your ministry would go further if you would just, maybe my ministry is to talk to 8 people on the floor in my room and praise God. Okay, this concludes my TED Talk. You can't hurt me with something I've already realized. And I think that's the message that I want to give you, Mercedes, anybody else that's watching. It is in our brokenness that allows him to sit with us down by the well with the other dirty Samaritans. Okay, because we ain't Jewish. Okay. Yes, because I call me nothing. We all sitting down and hanging out. So your attempt at disqualifying me lets me know my name made the cut. I don't think I very rarely be scared about dying and not going to heaven because I know I'm that crazy and messed up that I needed him. Even in the calling of me, there is a confirmation that I'm never gonna get to the true transformation until I transition. That means he's still working on me. Cool. That takes some stress off me because I'm a doer. And I like crossing things off my list. And he know that, which is probably why I'm 33 and I still ain't got no multi-million-dollar company that I'm coaching for or working for or owning. Because he's like, I got to settle some things in your spirit about who you are and me first. Say a lot of people back. Yes. So I hope that if you're watching this, I hope that you take that with you. Don't ever let nobody make you feel like you too broke to be a Christian. That's your qualifier. That's your qualifier. Okay? Jesus was sitting with the hoes and the bums. Okay? I heard a pastor say, when Jesus was giving a sermon on the mount and he yelled out, blessed are the poor, didn't nobody hop up and say, blessed is everybody, Jesus. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was a cold piece, and I don't think that. Sometimes I try to imagine like how I would interact with Jesus if he was around or if he met me or whatever. I think that I'm so chatty and so inquisitive and so talkative that I would be the one to see Jesus and just fall to my feet and just like be crying because I'm normally a chatty person, and I think Jesus oftentimes pulls the opposite from us. And I think I would just be so overwhelmed because he probably would look at me in a way that just said something to my spirit where I just lose it. So that's why I always laugh when I encounter little things around my life and I feel like God is talking to me. I be like, all right, Lord, I hear you. You know what I'm saying? So I hope this blessed you. As you go forward in the next couple of days, please watch this again if you need to. Please be very, very clear on your past, how it affects your present. Be very clear when you separate secular and spiritual compartments in your life. Don't compartmentalize. Be very clear on it if you do. When dealing with people triggering you, write it down. If you don't know, make a list and identify them. And then wherever you are in your healing process and you're crying out for God to heal you, this is the faith part of the exercise. Just begin to understand that I think he already started healing me. That's the hard part. Because you could feel so down and so broken and so lost that you don't believe that he already started healing you. and you're like waiting on something, and God's like, I already started. If you just be okay with the pace that I'm going at for you, because when I heal you, you're gonna be healed. Okay, baby? When I heal you and they try to hit you in the that's why Paul was a beast, because they try to hit your boy out after he had killed all them Christians, but God had already did his great work in him, however fast or slow the work was. And so when people was hitting him with the okie doke, he was taking them, he was eating them punches, and they couldn't figure out why. When you really healed, like for real, them Nerf guns don't hurt. They don't hurt. So anyway, I'm gonna get up off of here. I gotta call my family to help me off this floor. I love you guys. I know this was long, but I hope it was I hope it helped. I hope it helped. So anyway, peace be unto you. Stay safe. Black Lives Matter. And you know, I believe this is a time that God is doing something special in the lives of people who open the door, invite them in, believers or non-believers. Love y'all. Thank y'all for watching. Thanks for being open with me. Peace.